We've been saving to buy a home for a couple of years now, and even though we own a home currently, we still feel priced out of moving, to getting a new house, to getting a bigger house, to getting even a slightly nicer house that's not bigger. We are just feeling priced out of the market, and that is true for us and a lot of people with really low mortgage rates. And it's even more true for people that are renting and dealing with these crazy high rent prices and a market of homes that is just frankly unaffordable. It's not surprising considering now the median home listing is about $425,000, which is over $100,000 more than it was just 4 years ago. And with current rates that have not gone down since they rose recently, you are dealing with a much higher monthly payment on housing than ever before. The monthly payment for your mortgage principal and interest is so much higher now than it would have been years ago that most people can't afford the current home prices. Every day I have people in my comments asking, how are people affording houses? How are people affording it moving in this market? How are people affording their first home? And honestly, there are a lot of factors to this. Some people have a lucky break and they have an inheritance. Some people did buy before 2020 and they have a lot of equity that they can roll over into a new house. Some people just make a lot of money. But in this video, I'm going to talk to those of you that don't have that going on because that's not my situation either. So in this video, I'm going to talk to everybody else that is feeling like housing is unaffordable right now. You're just priced out of the market. And some of the things that we can all do to maybe either get us in a house, make things feel a little better mentally, or just reframe the whole situation so that we can continue doing what we're doing until we can afford a home. So let's talk about the options that we have in this situation. So this includes everybody that is either renting and saving up to buy a home and just feels like they can't, or people like myself that have an interest rate on a home under 3% and you have some equity, but you don't have enough to basically afford a new mortgage at almost 7% interest, where your payment is going to either double or in some cases triple monthly. And that's just not affordable for a lot of people, including myself. So what can we do in this situation? If we want to keep looking for homes, we are probably going to have to look in different locations. So home prices in the best neighborhoods are obviously more pricey. Home prices in certain desirable areas might be out of reach now and forever. And this means maybe looking further out so that you have a longer commute if you have a 9 to 5 where you have to go in every day. So it does mean maybe you are looking at suburbs further out than in the city. So my hometown is Nashville, and in Nashville, the median home price is around $640,000. I cannot afford that. But if you look at suburbs like Murfreesboro, Clarksville, places like that, you can save like $200,000 on your home price because it's around $450,000 in those markets. So you can find a home that's much more reasonable and you can actually afford in those markets, even if it does mean you now have a commute. So that commute might be a lot longer than you want. It might not be your favorite, but if you want to really own a home, that might be a more feasible option that can get you into a house that you love and can afford. So that's one option. Personally, I hate commuting. I work from home now. I don't really ever want to go back to a long commute. Even when I was commuting every day, 20 minutes is my max commute. Anything longer and I just can't do it. So maybe that's not okay for you. But some people that I know don't mind it at all. They love having like a 45-minute commute in their car. They listen to their podcast. It's their me time. It's fine. And if that's you, this can be a really good option. A similar option that people take all the time now is to relocate to a different city or a different state. So this is actually something that I see a lot living in Tennessee, is that people from the West Coast, our West Coast friends, and other areas, but specifically I know a lot of people from Oregon and California that have moved to Tennessee and are taking advantage of the lower priced homes and the lack of income tax to live a lifestyle that they can afford. So they couldn't really afford the rising costs out there, but here they come and they can purchase a house for a reasonable price to them, even sometimes in cash. I have a lot of issues with this because when that happens, it makes it less affordable for people like me who already live in Tennessee, so we're priced out of our own markets. But also, this is just something that tends to be 50-50 on whether or not it works out long term. Relocating to a completely different place is really hard, and leaving, especially if you have a really good group of friends and family, very hard. Starting over and rebuilding that can be difficult. And a lot of people I've seen just move back to the West Coast to their family in California or Oregon or wherever they're from. And it is kind of, honestly, from the people I know personally, this is obviously not statistically accurate, but just the people I know that did this, very much 50-50. Some stayed, some have already moved back and gave up on the idea of moving that far away. So when people say, oh, if you don't like the house pricing where you are, just move somewhere else, it's a little hard to do that because it works for some people. Yes, it totally can work. You can move to the boonies in the middle of nowhere if you work from home or you don't work or whatever and get a cheap house. Can be great, can work. And if you're flexible or you always stay at home anyway, it's fine. But if you are losing your support system, if you're losing the access to your family or access to things that you really need and it's not in that new place, then it's really just not a good option. So saying this to everyone as a blanket statement, just move. It doesn't really work out. So this is only an option for a very select group of people, I feel like, and it does work, but it's a very small number that this actually makes sense for. So let's get to the real options because you just don't always have the option to move. So unfortunately, one of the options is just to make more money. And this can be really hard for a lot of people, but there are multiple different ways to make money. You can work longer hours if you get overtime, so you can work a lot of overtime hours. You could get a second job. I have some friends, and I've done this before too, where you have a full-time job that you work 40 hours, and then you also have a second job. Or if you're someone that works as a teacher, you get a second job in the summer. You already had your teaching job, now you get a second job. And honestly, that's unfortunate. Sometimes you have to get two jobs just to make something like home ownership happen, but it's the reality of the current situation that we're in, unfortunately. And then the other option is to get a new job that pays more. And job hopping is the way that most people raise their salary in massive jumps. So if you're wanting a 20 or 30% raise to keep up with the idea of buying a home, you're probably gonna have to get another job at another company because most companies are not handing out these raises to their employees just to keep up with things like housing costs. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality, again, that we live in. So those are some of the ideas that you can use to make money, and making extra money is something that's possible, but you are going to be trading off either your time, your mental effort, or your physical effort, your labor. So that's always something to keep in mind. How much can you sacrifice for a short time to earn more money to get into a home that you can afford? The next option is to save more money for a longer period of time. This is actually what we're doing. We thought we'd be out of this home and in a new home by now, but we're not, because we've decided to save more money, stay where we are, pile up as much as we can, and hope for the best in a couple of years. This is something that you may want to do, or something that is just what you have to do to get a bigger down payment so that you can afford a home with a smaller mortgage because you put more money down up front. It can make a big difference if you're putting down 10% versus 20% on a home. So maybe you have to take a year or two or even more to double what you're putting down on your home, and that delays your home ownership for a while, but it can honestly make a big difference on affordability and also what you're paying every single month and how that affects your lifestyle. Another thing you can do during this time of saving up more money is pay down any debt that you have so that you're able to better qualify and you have less monthly payments competing for the money that you need to put toward a mortgage. So that way you look better on paper, and honestly, when you get in the home, you're able to afford it better. The budget is easier and you're not super stressed or overextending yourself on making all these different payments where life is just miserable and why did you buy a house anyway? So that's another option that you can do while you are saving up a down payment, a bigger down payment for a home. Getting yourself in a better financial position to both afford a mortgage and actually pay it once you get it is a great idea. And then the final thing that you can do is actually reset your feelings and emotions and thoughts about owning a home. It's okay to not own a home. And yes, that might feel like you are killing one of your dreams, or the American dream that we all thought we had, but it's okay to rent. It's actually not that bad, and it's sometimes really preferable. Sometimes it's really nice to not have to deal with your clogged pipes or your broken water heater or anything that goes wrong in your home. You just call a landlord and they fix everything. That can be really nice. You don't have to pay out of pocket when those things happen. You don't have to worry about it happening in the middle of the night or whenever, because you can call someone else and they can deal with it. That's always nice. I loved that when I was renting, and I rented for a long time before I bought a house. it can be amazing. And also it can be a lot cheaper, even with the higher rent prices, which are so much higher than they were before and probably should be. Even with that, it's still cheaper to rent right now than to buy in almost every major metro area. In the top 50 major metro areas, it is cheaper currently to rent than to buy. It's also important to know that home ownership is not necessarily the only path to success and financial success. You can rent your entire life and build a ton of wealth. You can live a really rich and wonderful life by being a renter and investing your money in places outside of real estate. So there's definitely a lot of ways to live a great life while renting. You don't have to buy a home. And sometimes reframing how you feel about buying a house can be helpful in this situation where it feels unaffordable and like you just can't do it. Realize that renting is great. Renting is a great option for still building wealth. Renting is also something that a lot of people choose to do rather than buy a home, and that is by choice, not by financial need. So maybe you have to move yourself from I have to buy a home to renting is the best financial choice, and that can take some work, but it might be the best option to just reframe how you're thinking about home ownership in your head so that you can live a life without the stress of striving to buy a house that's just out of your reach. So those are some of the things I think that you and myself could do if we are feeling priced out of buying a home. It's definitely something that has moved way further than most of us would like, away from our affordability and reach, but these things can help us get us there, and hopefully in time the market also changes so homeownership is more affordable for everyone. If you have any ideas of how to make a home more affordable or things that you're doing to get into a house, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your answers, and until then, check out this next video.